The Coonhound Collective podcast is brought to you by CZ Welding and Custom Dog Boxes. Dog boxes built by hunters for hunters. Check these guys out today. This is your host, Jason Snellgrove, and I will be your guide as we journey down the road to pleasure hunt or hitting the long trail to those great comp hunts. This is the Coonhound Collective podcast. Welcome to the Coonhound Collective podcast today. Today, we're going to talk some Redbone dogs with Mr. Adrian Strickland. Adrian, how's it going today?
It's doing good. How about you?
Oh, pretty good. It's a beautiful day here in the Ozarks. We've had some ice and some snow here in the past week, but it's all about melted off and the sun's shining, so that's a good thing for sure.
Yeah, it's a little bit better than it is here. It ain't doing nothing but raining down here in North Carolina.
Yeah. Well, speaking of North Carolina, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of where you're from there?
I grew up 30 miles east of Raleigh, which is the center of North Carolina. So I'm about 30 miles east of Raleigh. Started coon hunting when I was 11, 12 years old, like most kids. Started with my father's cousins, actually, the first ones that brought me coon hunting years ago. And we've always had deer dogs and run deer dogs down here. And so I've always been around hounds, but coon dogs is always, from that first night, was the bug had bit me, like they always like to say. I fell in love with the sport of coon hunting.
Yeah. Before you go on there, you said east of Raleigh. So are you kind of in rolling hills or are you down in swamps altogether?
I'm actually in a mixture. Right around the house, we got a few little rolling hills. I can go 15 minutes from me and be hunting swamps where you need a boat to hunt out of. It kind of just depends on where I'm at. I'm in a good mixture where I'm at right here in this part of the state.
Yeah, I work for a company that done tree trimming for utility lines, and I work quite a few ice storms in South Carolina and North Carolina. So I know there's kind of a middle ground area there where you can kind of hit both.
Yeah, that'd be right where I'm located at, right in the middle of it all, right in all the action, which is good. Kind of gets the dog prepared for about anything you could throw at it.
Yeah, that's definitely a benefit. You're talking about getting dogs prepared, especially to go travel and comp hunt and stuff. And I'm from South Alabama originally, and so we had row crop and not really any type of mountainous stuff, but a lot of swamp and stuff like that. And I lived in Illinois, and it was kind of the same deal. It was row crop and a little bit of river bottom stuff like that. But where I live here now is just kind of mountainous and rocky, and you don't really get into any swamps. But I can drive a little bit north and get in a row crop, and a little bit west and get into a few swamps. Nothing like what I was used to down south.
Yeah, and I like the mixture. It's kind of, it's challenging when you hunt the swamps, and then if I'm trying to go to a hunt up north or where I'm going to have to be in a lot of cropland, I'll hit my land there that's more suited to that territory.
Yeah, while we're on that subject, we're going to talk about your dogs and stuff like that here in a minute. But whenever you get into those swampy areas, it's a different mindset for me anyway, and the dog has to operate a little bit different to really succeed in that kind of conditions.
Yeah, I know when we hunt the swamps a lot, when a coon does swim across the swamps, the scent will kind of drift around in the water, and that takes some adjustment for a lot of dogs to kind of adjust to be able to track in that type of terrain. But they also got to be able to get the feet wet. I've seen a lot of dogs come from out of state that's never been around that kind of water, and it kind of blows their minds a lot, to have to get submersed in water like that and go.
Yeah, and whenever I was hunting swamps back in Alabama, I mean, there was a lot of times dogs would be swimming around trees, and my when I got back into coon hunting after moving to this part of Missouri, I'd been back into coon hunting, but we bought a farm here and had a place to actually have a dog. And that first dog I got, which he passed away at a young dog, was making a nice young dog. He was not a fan of water at all, which was different for me. He was used to these shallow running creeks. If we got over around some deep water, I mean, it would have to be a sure enough hot track to drag him out in it. He did not like it.
Yeah, that's kind of been a challenge for a lot of young dogs I've had throughout the years, is getting used to the water. You know, like you said, I've had some that just never was their cup of tea to be able to hunt in them swamps. And then I've had some that just seems like that's what they look for. I could turn them out on dry ground and they won't happy until they found some water.
Yeah.
To hunt on.
Yeah, for sure. Well, tell us about the first coonhound you remember having. What was it, a Redbone? I know we haven't said that, but that's what we're going to talk about today is the Redbone line of dogs that you hunt. What was that first dog, a Redbone? Did you have something else?
No, I actually started with grade blue ticks. First two hounds I had as a boy, I started around 11, 12 years old. They were both grade blue ticks. I had a young one that was making a fine hound, and he got killed at an early age. And my daddy kind of looked around and found me a grade blue tick male, an older male that was running and treeing some, and he made a fair dog for a young kid at that age. It was like I felt like I had won the lottery. It was he taught me a lot. You know, I had a lot of good times with him.
Yeah, well, I can definitely relate to that. You know, you get that first dog that's yours and it actually goes out and trees coons. Boy, you think you're on top of the world, for sure. So from that dog, did you immediately go into Redbones, or was there anything in between?
No, from that dog, actually, the Redbone, my love for Redbones fell along. Like I said, we always raised up running deer dogs, and a guy in my club actually had a Redbone in his area that had got hung up in one of his deer dogs. And as a kid, he had raised a litter of puppies for deer dogs, and one of them was just as pretty a Redbone as you've ever seen in your life. And from that day on, when I laid my eyes on that dog, I knew that was the type of dog I wanted, the dog I wanted. And lo and behold, some years later, you know, when I did get into Redbones, and I had been in them for years, I come to find out that the dog that I had fell in love with was actually one of the same line of dogs that I'm hunting today. That I just didn't know it. It took me 15 years or more before we ever figured out that they were off the same bloodline of dogs.
Okay, well, won't you tell us about that bloodline of dogs? Kind of, you said they were from that same line. What is that line of red dogs that you're hunting now?
The line, there's a local line of dogs down here, and before we go too far, I couldn't have done none of this without my wife. You know, I've been with her since high school, and she's been along the way with me, and is really affected and kept my mindset on which way I want to breed the dogs and which way to go. I've always conversed with her on what I want to do with these line of dogs. But I do have her sitting here with me. Introduce yourself. Her name is Becky.
I'm his better half.
Yeah, well, I always say that there's always friends and coon hunters around that usually help a successful person out, but the one that's at home behind the doors that you're talking to at night about dogs, and sometimes they probably don't even care to hear about it. That's the ones that are really the best support system.
Yeah, she's the brains behind operations, what I like to call.
But he actually got his first Redbone before we got married. We got married at 19. And the blue ticks that he was talking about earlier, he sold those while we were dating. And I kind of felt guilty about it because he said, he just didn't have enough time to hunt like he felt like he should. So he sold them. And so a couple of years later, I said, why don't you get you another coon dog? And so at that point in time, he had kind of made his mind up. He wanted a Redbone, and so we looked, and he saved up for what, 6 months to buy that.
Oh yeah, I was broke.
And so we ended up buying a Redbone puppy, and that's kind of where it all started. Her name was Alice. She ended up being my dog because she wasn't making what he wanted, and so I ended up kind of taking her over. But anyway, our line kind of goes back to her a little bit. So
yeah, she was the start of the Redbone, the Alice dog she mentioned. She was the first registered dog I'd ever had in my life, and even hunting with my cousins coming up, they were always just grade dogs. They were hide hunters, so if it treated coon, that's all that mattered, because that's all we were after was coon pelts back then. But yeah, she was the first registered dog, and that's what we've built our line today off of her.
Yeah, you know, back in the day, they didn't really care what it was out of, what it was mixed with, as long as it performed to their standards of what they were wanting to do with the dog. That's kind of what the old timers look for. And, you know, I think through pedigrees and some different breedings, we've kind of got it, you know, narrowed down. And that's kind of how me and you got talking. You had posted some questions, or I guess maybe more food for thought on Facebook, and I read it, and I thought some of that was pretty good about, you know, what traits you're looking for in a dog, and talking about some of the traits that you like and what you look for in a dog. And I think you got some pretty decent feedback on it.
Yeah, that's kind of the mentality I've always brought along it. You know, grew up hunting with them. We were looking for what we were in a dog performance wise, and I've always just kind of transitioned that and kept it the same. You know, we don't harvest no way as many coons no more, because there just ain't no need to, but I've got more enjoyment now trying to get all I can out of a dog performance wise, and that seems to be the thing I enjoy most out of it now, is just watching a dog develop and get better and better as the years go on.
So in this line of dogs that you have there, are you line breeding these dogs? Are you having to outcross very much to hold on to those traits that you're looking for, or are they seeming to pass them on generation after generation pretty consistently?
I've done a lot of line breeding throughout the years. I've never called myself a big time breeder. I know a lot of guys have probably done more for breeding standards, you know, than I have, because I've never really considered myself a breeder. I've only bred when I wanted dogs myself. But I've line bred them a lot, and then when they get so tied up, you know, I've done some outcrosses on dogs that were similar to what I like, or had the traits that I like in them, and then go back, try to line breed it and seal it. Because I've always been taught to seal the traits in the line of dogs, you have to line breed. That'll kind of lock in what you're looking for. That was always the mentality I was taught, whether it was right or wrong. That's the way I was taught to do it.
Yeah. So when you're bringing that, are you going, how close are you getting when you're line breeding? Are you going uncle, niece? Are you going granddad, great granddad, or and granddaughter? Or how are you doing that?
I like to do a lot of half brother and sister crosses, and I'm planning on doing some grandfather back to grandchildren. But the best one I've had out of all the years I've hunted, she was an accident. But she was actually a mother to son cross. It was an accident, and we raised them, but she ended up making the best dog I've ever snapped at the end of my league. But
okay.
I still have some of her blood in my stuff here.
So whenever you're line breeding and you see that you need to outcross, are you talking to people? Are you hunting with other dogs that are around there? How are you finding those dogs with the correct traits that you need to bring in to, I guess, amplify what you have?
I'll talk to a lot of folks, and believe it or not, a lot of folks I talk to are actually hunters of the other breeds that's hunting against these dogs, because they'll a lot of times they'll give you more of an honest take, on what a dog is. I've talked to a lot of guys, that's hunted other breeds. I've known that's hunted against some of these lines of dogs and find out about them. And, a lot of times they'll tell you, you're a coon hunter like I am. If you go to a hunt and if you draw let's say you're an English dog hunter, a walker dog man, and you draw a black and tan that really look good, and you go around and say, hey, I'd feed that dog, or that's one of the nicest ones I've been with, that's saying a lot to me, to get a man that's hunting a different breed of dog to say that about a different breed.
Yeah, I agree with you there. That's probably some of the best breeding advice that's probably I've ever heard is, a man that's hunting a different breed of dog that draws out with the breed of dog that you're looking to outcross on, that gives you that type of advice. I don't think he's trying to steer you wrong for sure, because most of the time that's the straight honest opinion of someone there, of if they're willing to speak up, because not all people, but some people get to be colorblind in their own breed and they don't want to see any other way. And hey, to each your own. That's the reason why there's 7 different breeds that we can pick through to hunt and do what we want to. So we all have our own opinions, and there's the X breed that people like too, and but for whoever that is to say, hey, I drawed that redbone the other night, and boy, I'm tell you what, I would hunt a redbone if I had one that looked like that. That's probably the best advice out there.
And the thing about red bones, they're in the minority, and so in our area, we don't strive to compete against red bones, because you're not, if that's your goal, you're not going to hunt against any of them. So I mean, the people that we hunt with on a regular basis hunt walkers, they hunt English dogs, and so we want our red bones to compete with them. And so, when Adrian talks about breeding, he's got a lot of advice from Mr. Irwin Massengill, who passed away recently, and then Mr. Kent Spencer, and those people, and because we want our line to one day hopefully live up to what those are, and we don't want to just compete against red bones, we want to compete against everybody.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say this. I'm probably going to have some buddies that after this airs, I'll get some phone calls or text messages from, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. It don't matter where you go in the country, the walker breed is dominantly the dog that shows up. And on Coon Hunting University podcast, I think I've mentioned this before. They were, I don't even remember who it was that they were talking to, but he drew Barry Kitty on a Saturday night, and Sunday his dog come in heat. And that Saturday night, I guess him and Barry Kitty had a knockdown, drag out argument out on the cast. But when his dog come in heat, there was no question of where he was taking that dog to get bred, and that was up to Barry Kitty's house. And maybe not all the time, but I think some of the times in other places that the walker breed has just made their mind up. We're going to be successful. We're going to do whatever it takes, breed ever how we got to breed, to make a dog that we can go out and compete with day in, day out, every weekend, during the week, whatever it takes to win. And maybe there's pockets here and there of the breed that's done that, whether it be redbone, English, black and tan, whatever. But overall, as a group in each breed, I don't think we've done that. I know I hunt English dogs, and there's pockets in the English dogs, but overall as a group, we have not done what the walker dogs have done for sure.
No, I agree with you 100%. They are. And by like you, I'm going to probably catch some grief over this, but they're a lot of years ahead of breeding techniques and everything in front of everybody. They don't do no line blindness. I've seen that in a lot of the other breeds. They've been a lot of kind of kennel blindness, and a lot of that's starting to fade. I've seen it's getting better, but we got some catching up to do.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, let's back up for just a second here. And when did you enter your first competition hunt?
I was probably 21 or so. 2021, I went for years. I didn't even know that they had no more night hunts. It was kind of always, as a boy, read the Fool Crime magazines that my cousins had. I always thought they had gone away. But as I got older, I had run into some other coon hunters and found out about them. And at that point in time, I actually had a dog he's not in my line of dogs because he passed before he could have puppies. But I went back and got a puppy off a litter mate brother to him that I run into hunts when I first started. His name was Onion. And he's been dead now for 20 years, but they still talk about him. He's kind of been, even the Walker guys from the old days love that little dog to death. He's kind of like what you said when the dogs are. He was one they talked up a lot. And I went to my first hunt, and he was the dog that never was, the way I like to say it, because I was green in the sport. I didn't know much. I wasn't very good. I still ain't a very good handler today, but I could never win nothing with the dog. we give them a hard time. It was hard to beat us, but I never could come away with a win with the dog. He ended up dying as a rescue dog, but they thought the world of him around here. That little dog did.
Yeah, that's part of the battle. You have a good dog that can go out and perform, and I know myself, I'm not the greatest handler, and sometimes I hurt my own dog, more so than anybody else in the cast. So I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah, I've gotten better the older. I've paid my lessons $20 at a time. I about learned everything you can learn at it now. I spend enough money. I've learned it.
Yeah. So what kind of, are you predominantly UKC hunting, PKC hunting? What kind of, are you doing a mixture of both? How's that working out there?
I predominantly UKC hunt. I do dabble in PKC. I used to do a lot of AKC hunting when it was trying to get hot and heavy again back in the mid 2000s. But then it's kind of dropped off in our area. So I've gone back to UKC. I've dabbled at trying to get back into PKC, but I'm self-employed and it's hard for me to get going on the weeknight, going everywhere because I got a long day's work the next day in front of me. So I've always kind of liked the weekend hunts.
Yeah. Well, I definitely understand that. And that's the reason why there's a mixture out there. So you can kind of pick and choose what works out best for you. So after Onion there, what did you already have a pup coming along, or did you have to go out and hunt you something to get going again?
Actually we had bred Alice to a dog. I might have to back up. I kind of jumped a little bit with Onion, but I had a dog, Alice. I had her going, and I went and got another dog as a pup, and got him going, and ended up getting him bred to Alice just before I bought Onion, which Onion come from the same man, Don Whitley, where I had bought my Amos dog from, which is what I bred to Alice. And I was hunting, and Amos had passed, and he knew Amos passed, and Don called me, and that's when he sold me Onion. So I had, at that point in time, only had Onion about a year before he got struck and killed in the road by a car. But at that time, I had Alice, she was making a good dog, just what I considered a top competition dog. And I had that pup, which I named Rudy. And when Onion got killed that night, I had Alice and Rudy with me, and Rudy was in the road with Onion when he got struck, but the car didn't get Rudy, it just got Onion. But after that, I started predominantly pushing Rudy and Alice. That's all I had. And we went on to make Alice a night champion in UKC. And Rudy ended up being a dog that was line bred off of a lot. He ended up making an exceptional hound. He had a lot of speed to him. Not quite as much nose as I liked in the dog, but he had a whole lot of speed. And he's what I mainly line bred my dogs off of today, was him.
Okay, how do these dogs operate in the woods? Are they blowing through the country? Are they hunting from the truck and going out as far as it takes? Or they kind of mixture of covering and by themselves? Are they by themselves all the time? Or are they covering? How are these dogs operating that you're hunting?
A lot of them, they may have had a little bit of a mixture of both, but what I'm striving for I want a dog when I cut it loose to start hunting in. I don't like one horse racing through the woods running past coons. I feel like that's a waste. And I want them to hunt in, and a lot of them that I've hunted throughout the years, they take off hunting. There ain't no straight line hunting. They're cutting back and forth in the woods until they find a piece of game to get after. But I have had some throughout the years that were the straight line type of dogs. I just never really bred into that much because that's not the style I like.
And one thing he does not tolerate is a dog that will not hunt. One that stands around your feet.
Yeah, no, I've had a lot of them get a bus ticket away from here. That's all. I like to joke to folks. I'm coon hunting. Hunting is part of the word of coon hunting, so I want a dog that's going to go hunting. That's just the way I was raised up.
Yeah, my stepdad is kind of who I coon hunted the most with, and he said, "Son, you can feed a good one just as good as you can feed a bad one."
That's right. I believe the bad ones eat more than the good ones.
Yeah, you're probably right there. Well, I kind of like a dog that that ain't scared to hunt by herself. That likes to hunt. And this little male dog I got. If you lay him up for a few days and take him, he'll bust through the country on you. But if you're hunting him hard, he'll kind of he never quits. He hustles around and just kind of hunts around you and starts working his way away from you until he finds a track. And that sounds like to me kind of what you're looking for there. Have you been pretty successful at being able to, when you needed a pup, be able to produce that for yourself?
Yeah, I have. Like I said, I've been raising this now for a little bit over between 20 and 25 years. This same line of dogs I've had here in the yard, and I've consistently had that type of dog. So I go through some puppies now to get there because I'm kind of demanding on a dog. I want a certain type of dog, and I want it to perform a certain way, and I just won't accept it if it ain't. And I've been consistently producing that.
So whenever you have a litter of puppies there, you talked about going through some puppies. Let's for just a moment, let's talk about that process. So you've made a decision on whatever male you're going to cross on a female or vice versa, and you have a litter of puppies there. How are you picking the puppies that you're keeping? Are you keeping all the puppies to a certain age and kind of looking at how they act, and or how are you evaluating and keeping the puppies that you're keeping? Are you putting them in people's hands and then getting them back when they're older? How's that working?
I've been kind of fortunate. A lot of the dogs I've had throughout these years, they've always had small litters. I've had a lot of, I don't know why this line of dogs has been like that, but I've had a lot of 3 and 4 puppy litters. So I've been able to keep the bulk of the puppies and pick through them like I want. And then the ones I didn't, I've had enough people with interest over the years to want to hunt these dogs. I would get them to folks' hands that would hunt them. And, sometimes I'd buy them back, or I would, been able to use them as a resource to breed back into the line of dogs I got,
Yeah, that's, whenever you're trying to, keep something going, man, it's important to be able to have people that you can, get dogs in their hands and that they'll actually put some time in them in the woods so you can see what's going on with them and how they're going to perform. And, it's just that's a big part of our sport, especially if you're breeding to look to get something for you and not breeding just to get rid of puppies.
Yeah, and that's the way I've always been whenever I wanted to breed. And a lot of my dogs, there's not a lot of them out there because I've never been, like I said before, a big time breeder. I've only bred when I want to. I've had a few outside females come in over the years, but I've never been what I call myself a big time breeder. I've always bred for myself, and even if I've had folks chomping at the bit want puppies, I still would never breed a dog until I wanted one. I won't go breed her until I knew I wanted one myself. I won't go breed a female unless I was willing to hunt the puppy off that female myself. That's the way I always felt.
So you had Rudy, I think you said there. What dog did you go to after those two, that male and female there, as you moved on up through the years? Did you have certain dogs that did you just keep one or two dogs around, to comp hunt and pleasure hunt with, or did you have several that you could just go out there and pick through?
I've had my wife probably get me for this. I've always had a kennel lot full of dogs around here. I've always, the way I've done it, I've stuck with my male dogs. The male dog I'm hunting today goes all the way back to Amos, directly right down the line. I've always stuck true to my male dogs. Where I've done a lot of my outcrosses is I would go buy females off of different lines or whatever, and I use them to cross back into with my male dog that I've had. That's how I've always done it. But yeah, I've kept a bunch of young dogs here, and I'd dwindle down. I keep what I want. I'd whittle it down for a few years and push a dog in a hunt for a few years, and then once I get that dog as good as I could, I'd kind of pleasure hunt it and go back on the search of trying to find something to replace it with.
Yeah, how tough is it whenever you go back to find something to replace it with, especially when you've been satisfied with something?
Oh, that's a tough struggle there. That is a tough one. It has taken me several years to come back up with another dog that would satisfy me. Sometimes I'll kind of disappear, and I'll have a good dog, but not what I consider that top tier dog. And I'll still knock around the local hunts with it, but until it takes me a little bit to go through one and find one just like I like.
So as far as hunts, have you always just hunted local? Did you hunt the Grand American, or is there what big hunts have you hunted at?
Yeah, I've hunted. I do a lot of local hunting, but yeah, I've actually hunted the Grand American. The female I was telling you about earlier, the T dog. Her name was Trudy. I always called her T. I actually made the Final Four at the Grand American with her in 2011. It actually was the highest scoring dog up there for the entire weekend, but we fell flat in the Final Four, and we ended up placing fourth. But I was proud of the performance she done that weekend. I really was.
And she was actually off of a mother-son cross. That was the one he was referring to earlier. But her mama was Alice, and her daddy was Rudy.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess, the last time I went to the Grand American was probably like 95 or 96. So it's been a while since I've been there. And I guess their format is 2-night hunt, and then you have the Final Four early Sunday morning, I guess it is. Is that how that works?
Yeah, that was the first year that the Grand American with her. It always was a single high scoring cast win, and then the high score from Friday, the two high scores from Friday, two high scores from Saturday advanced to the Final Four. Well, the year she got in, they changed the format to what it is now, which I like it a lot better. Double cast win is going to trump over a high score. So you had to have the highest double scoring cast win got you in. And she actually was the highest scoring double cast winner. We had scored Friday night, I think we had like 375. And then Saturday we scored 750 with her. And it put her high scoring double cast winner going into the Final Four. But like I said, it was a tough fault cast that Saturday. And that laying up in the truck for 2 hours, she stiffened up on me, and she tried her best, but we just fell flat.
So is there any other bigger hunts that you've maybe traveled to that you've hunted in?
Yeah, my Rudy dog actually was high scoring Redbone in the 2008 AKC World Hunt when they had it down in South Carolina. I go to a lot of the state hunts like Virginia State, and I've been to South Carolina State, and I've gone to a lot of them. I've been to some bigger PKC hunts.
Been to Tournament of Champions this past year.
Yeah, I've been to Tournament of Champions.
Redbone days.
Yeah, we've been to several Redbone days throughout the years where they have them across the country.
So whenever you travel, say like last year out to the Tournament of Champions from there, are you leaving a little early? Is your dogs it don't bother them? They travel well? I know some people say they have trouble with their dogs, when you're having to travel a long way. Some dogs just don't travel good.
Yeah, I'll leave a little early. I actually left early this year and hunted with a a boy named Blake Wheeler down there in Georgia. He was nice enough to take me out pleasure hunting. And I went out hunting with him to kind of get the dog acclimated down there. And because I've always had little issues with the dogs. Some of them just don't travel too good. It takes them like a day or so to get their sea legs back under them, and they'll perform like they ought to. I've only had one that I could haul from here to California that I think would be the same dog. And I'll touch on him because he's actually more up your line of dogs there. He's actually an English dog. I'll dabble into how I got in some English dogs also.
Well, yeah, let's hear it.
Are you tired of whipping, scolding, and shocking to make them get alone? Is your buddy tired of helping you set your dog up for correction night after night? Do you really want your dog to be alone because you forced him to be? Or would you rather him be alone because he wants to be? Grand Night Champion Small Town Lone Survivor is the product of over 25 years of strong natural-born independent traits. This bold trait has been passed down from generation to generation and is showing up in loner offspring today. Loner is a direct son of Hall of Fame Grand Night Champion Cabin Creek Rowdy and Grand Night Champion Lonesome Dove Lori. Loner has a booming mouth that is talked about in every cast he has been in, including the 2021 World Hunt Finals. Loner is a no-reverse, ball-mouth open trailer who ends it plussed up with a huge dying locate and steady chop. Loner loves getting split and is a stay-put gun-pressure tree dog. Loner's intelligence is also impressive. He knows over 12 voice and hand signal commands. Loner has a character that loves like Jesus, but he doesn't walk on water. If you're interested in breeding to Loner, contact Brett Stevens at Small Town English Kennels at 417-300-3777 or find him on Facebook.
If you're interested in running a stud ad for your dog here on the Coonhound Collective podcast, reach out to us at thecoonhoundcollective@gmail.com. Send us a message through Facebook or Instagram, and we'll be glad to get with you to get you an ad built and get you pricing on all of our ads.
Way back when I was hunting Onion, right after he passed, we went to the North Carolina state hunt, and Onion had passed, and we were hunting Alice in it, and we done good up there, but there's a English dog man down our way named Joe Morris. He had a dog, I don't know if you remember, he was number one on our reproducers list there for a little while, named Morris's Hard Time Booger. Well, Mr. Joe didn't stay 15 minutes down the road from me, and we've known each other all these years. He had a litter of puppies down there, and my wife, I'm a red dog fanatic. I love them, but my wife loves an English dog. She loves them little speckled dogs to death. And she bought her a puppy, and I ended up with that puppy, raised that puppy, and I was working a lot at the time, and we heard discuss when she was about 15 months old. We sold her, and sold her to Darren Merritt down here, and he made her grand and done real good with her in the hunts. But I kind of had stipulations when I sold her that I would get a pup whenever they bred her, and they bred her, I don't know, 6-7 years later. She was an older dog, and they bred her to one of Erwin Massen's dogs. This is how I ended up getting up with Erwin, and I kept me a pup off of that. And I got Pickle in the pup. Erwin stood up to the deal. Was a fine fella for that. And I raised that puppy, and Erwin ended up coming and buying half of that little young dog from me. And he kind of really made a name for himself around here and everything. His name was Noose River Heat. And a matter of fact, I just buried Heat a couple months ago. He just passed away. But we won a lot with Heat, and he actually at one point in time was sitting number 2 on the reproducers list for UKC, and he was a special dog, not just for me but for my family. But I learned a lot with Erwin. I learned fortunately he had taught me into getting some semen collected off of him, and that's something I learned also with my red dogs through Erwin as I've gone to get dogs collected just in case, because sometimes you're going to run into a roadblock breeding, and it don't hurt to dip back into the wheel and start back over.
Okay, so I've got some questions now.
Go ahead.
So you pick up this English dog and you start hunting. It sounds like he was pretty successful, I would say, and sounds like a pretty good reproducer. So what made you, or do you still, I guess here, my first question is, do you still got English dogs in your kennel, or are you just strictly hunting red bones? And if you're just strictly hunting red bones, what made you not want to continue on with the English?
So let me answer this. So Heat was a good dog. He was a great dog, but Heat was actually trained by a Redbone. And Irwin, if he was still alive, he would tell you this. We could take Heat out hunting, and we could take T out hunting, who's Redbone, and she would teach Heat a lesson every night that we took him. She was a coon dog. But now the thing about the Redbone breed that has been a little frustrating is you put T in a competition hunt, and she didn't look the same as that English dog. It was like, pleasure hunting. She could smoke everything out there and tree coons all night long. But competition hunting, she got finicky around other dogs that she didn't know. But anyway, so we raised some puppies off of Heat. Obviously he's got a lot of pups out there, but we felt like as long as he was living, we didn't want to hunt anything else English dog wise. But now that he's passed on, we probably will be pulling semen and breeding them pretty soon.
Yeah, it won't be long. I'll have another English dog in my kennel. We got some little females in the works that we're going to use some of this semen. I've had it stored for about 10 years, so I'm going to use me a little bit of it. He's gone now. Okay.
And the reason why I ask that is because I'm actually a black and tan guy. The first dog that I bought with my own money, or half my money, half my dad's, was a black and tan. And I mean, to the point, I took my senior pictures in high school with this dog, which my mom and dad wasn't real happy about. But when I got back into hunting, whenever we moved from Alabama to Missouri, I had gotten out. When I got back into hunting, I started hunting some plot dogs for a guy out of West Virginia. And whenever I was able to get my own dogs again, I started back with black and tans. And the little black and tan dog I was talking about that passed away, he was really, like I said, he was making a nice dog, and I liked a lot of the stuff I was seeing out of him. But, when he passed away, I had a couple of little black dogs that I was messing with, but nothing that was his caliber. And I just hadn't seen anything that I liked. And I ended up with this English female, and it wasn't that I liked so much that how she hunted or her mouth or anything like that. I had never been around a hound that was as an intelligent dog as she was. And so now I have this young male dog here that's completely unrelated to this female that I have. And he's got drive, he's got heart, he's got go, but in all of that, he's got brains. And that's what I come to find out that I liked about those few black dogs that I had, was the few that I had here and there, out of that line, they had brains. And that's something I've got to have, a dog that's willing to listen and can take some command and some instruction, when needed to, and not act like an idiot.
Yeah, now a lot of mine, Heat won't that way, but the red dog line I had were kind of like what you said, highly intelligent. Matter of fact, we'll get to Jaeger here in a little bit. That's the one I'm hunting now that I'm really pushing. But Rudy, Alice, Leroy, which was Jaeger's daddy, which is a story on its own to get on Leroy. But they all were voice command. They listened as good as anybody's duck dog. I never had to put a leash on a dog. They never broke my side. I could voice command them right off the tree to go right back hunting. They were just pure pleasurable to hunt, and that's kind of what I've always enjoyed doing. I like a dog that's got a handle on it like that.
Yeah, well, me too. That's probably one of the most important traits that a dog has to have, is I've got to be able to handle that dog. And even more so now as I've gotten older and I'm hunting in a lot rougher terrain than what I was originally used to. even just leading a dog out of the woods, or, being able to get a dog back to you if you need to, which thankfully, I don't have to do that very often. They get treed somewhere and I can get into them and get them and get out. But, that handle to me is the most important part of the tool package that I can put on a dog.
Yeah, I agree. And I was also told by a lot of the older guys that your best coon dogs are your most intelligent ones. You can't teach a stupid dog new tricks, but you can teach a smart one some new tricks. And I've come to find out a lot of the dogs I had were extremely intelligent, were better at tree and layup coons, and they could figure stuff out that a lot of dogs would quit on. They wouldn't quit; they'd figure it out and get that coon treed. And that's one of the other reasons why I've always liked a highly intelligent dog.
Yeah. Okay. So you had Heat there. You had the English dog. Did you have other red dogs? I'm assuming you did at the same time you were hunting him, that you were pushing in competition hunts.
I mainly had him and T, and then Leroy was the same age, which is going. Leroy was off of Rudy, and a Ruby female I bought, and she was the one that was niece to the Onion dog. So this is where Onion ties back into my line. But I went and, like I said, Onion couldn't have no puppy, so I went to Mr. Dow Hale, which he's passed too. He raised them line of dogs for, 40 years. And I started with that line of dog on trying to breed that in, because Onion was such an exceptional hound himself. And I got Leroy. Leroy was an adventure, to say the least. Leroy started out like most of my puppies started out real good. I'm talking about real good. And just for some reason one night just lost interest in treeing completely. And went for a while just wanted to run track and not treeing. I never could get him back treeing. I messed with him for about a year. And I got frustrated, was ready to give up on Leroy. And my wife done the thing she loves to do. She stepped in and took Leroy, said that he's going to be mine. That's my baby. Well, I kind of gripe the guys around the house, and they ain't going to like me saying this, but I run deer with Leroy for about 3 years. Put him in the deer pack. He run deer for me. We made a good deer dog. Well, by that 4th year running deer, he got where he didn't want to run deer. And all of a sudden, he went to treeing coons during the middle of the day. Decided he won't start back treeing. And I said, well, daggone, you don't want to run a deer, I'll coon hunt you. Well, he made a exceptional coon dog in his later years of life. I put him in some local hunts and made him a night champion in like 4 hunts, I think. And boy, I was ragging them around here, telling them they were losing to an old broke down deer dog. Couldn't be the deer dog, but I was just messing with him. But he taught me a valuable lesson. Sometimes there is late bloomers out there if you can stick with them.
Yeah, well, I actually have one in my kennel that, me and a buddy of mine kind of have her together. She's his dog, but he told me, if I can get her doing something that, we'd partner on her, and he's tried until he's frustrated with her, and she's getting a little age, on her a little more than a puppy, and but boy, you talk about a mouth on a female, and she was having a little trouble treeing, kind of like what you were talking about there, and not wanting to stay treed, and she's come along and starting to tree now a little more, and I told him she just needed to change the scenery.
Yeah. And I said with Leroy, he was a character. I've never had a dog that run deer for 3 years so good with a deer pack. Just up and quit. And to the day he died, he might have bumped one every now and then for a few hundred yards, but he was done running deer and wanted to tree coons. Just did it naturally. Just finally, I guess the bubble turned in his head, like they like to say, and he figured out what he was supposed to do.
Yeah, well, I don't think I've ever had it go that way, but I've had it go the other way where they make good deer dogs.
Yeah, like I said, he was an adventure, but he had just passed too. Him and Heat were about 4 or 5 months apart in age, and when he got Leroy got to be about 8 years old, another guy that had started this line with the Amos dog I had come from Don Whitley, but he had actually come from Mr. Stacy Parker down here in Four Oaks. He had a line of Redbones called the Deuce River Redbones he's had since the 70s. And Amos was off with his line of dogs. And I got to know Stacy and got to be good friends with Stacy over the years. And Stacy had a female he wanted to breed and asked me would I breed her back to Leroy. And I did, and I bred her back to Leroy. And I got 3 puppies out of it, two females and a male. And I kept the male, and because I knew that was going to probably be Leroy's last litter, and that's where I got my yellow dog that I got now from. And the other 2 puppies really made nice dogs that I know. I know one in South Carolina was making a good dog, but I know they went to breeding her. But I know the other one's down here on the coast in North Carolina, and she's a real nice little hound. They just don't she's in a pleasure hunter's hands, and they don't care nothing about competition hunting. But Jaeger has actually come about as close to my T-dog as I've had out of all of them. He's got a little bit, I'm going to say he's got the talent that my Trudy dog had for T, but he does not have none of the curiousness to him. I finally have got, at least with him, that curiousness out. It has been kind of a thing running rampant with my dogs. They've always been a little bit on the peculiar side about folks and other dogs, almost like one-man dogs. But he's really made a nice hound for me.
So how many generations did you see that, kind of the one-man dog type thing before you got it out, before you got the Jaeger here?
Jaeger's going to actually probably be the first. A lot of them, Leroy was a little bit better. Rudy was really curious and all, but Leroy was won't no ways as bad. Leroy, just when you turned him out, he had to smell everybody in the cast, and then he'd go hunting. He wouldn't just take right off hunting. He'd stop me, go up and smell everybody's leg. He wouldn't be aggressive or nothing like that. He had to smell everybody to see what he was with. Then he just mosey on his own way. It started with Leroy getting out of it some. I think Mr. Stacy's line, they were real curious, and I didn't really double up on that. And I got away and started doubling up on some lines because the line I had got from Stacy were extremely independent, and that's something I really like in a dog is independence. I'd rather have a dog that's by itself 90% of the time, and his dogs were like that. So I started getting away from that, doubling up on the other good lines because I was scared if I kept doubling up on that, I was going to keep getting that curiousness in them.
Jaeger has, 5 generations of Tar River Redbones?
Yeah, he's a 5th generation dog I've raised here at the house.
Okay. Yeah, I know, sometimes you're either trying to get something in and get something out, and, sometimes that takes some time to be able to come up with the right combination there to get it out. So wasn't sure there how that come about there. So, did we miss any other dogs in there, or you ain't got another breed there that you're going to throw in on me, are you?
No, I ain't got no other breed I've messed with. Just mainly, I've been known around here for English dogs. I've always been kind of the English and Redbone man around here, but I reckon most of the country didn't realize that he was actually owned by a Redbone man, but it's out there now. He was owned by a Redbone man.
Mr. Irwin promoted him, but we were behind the scenes hunting him, and he stayed in our yard most of his life, other than a short stint when he went up north for a little while.
But no, we're pretty much caught up to where my Jaeger dog is now, and that's what I'm hunting. I've bred him one time. He's 6, and I said I've not raised many. I've actually got 1 litter of pups off of him. That's about a year and a half, doing real good, and we just made 1 more cross. These pups are probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks old. I got some high hopes for them.
Well, let's talk about the future of your kennel. What are some goals that you have that you want to see hit with your kennel, and is there anything in particular that you really want to try to strive to do with any of your dogs?
Yeah, my goals is to to just keep promoting the style of dog like I got, and have had to try to keep it going. I've seen it happen a lot of years. You run into a roadblock. I like to call it a roadblock. Sometimes you can have the best dog in the world, and he just don't seem to be able to reproduce. That dog can't. And that's kind of the reason why Irwin always taught me into get some semen collected on dogs that you knew could reproduce to start back over. But is to kind of continually produce a top-tier dog that can compete with these walkers and these English and everything else. We can't beat them all the time, but we want to be able to be in the running. I want to be that man. I want my dog to be that dog that they talk about. Man, that's a Redbone I'd love to have, regardless whether I win or not. Goal-wise, hunt goals, there's a hunt that's always evaded me, is the Grand American. I would love to win that. I've come close that year when I made the Final Four, and I almost made the Final Four one year with Heat. We missed it by one coon getting in the Final Four. But that's a hunt that I've always strived to try to win. It's kind of, to me, that's the Super Bowl of hunts around here, because I've been all over the country, and that's probably the biggest hunt I've been to, dog-wise, and, actual event held on a weekend.
Yeah, well, Chris Harley, I just had him on the podcast, and that was he got it done this year, and he said that was one of the hunts he had been after to win for sure. And
yeah, I actually grew Chris a couple of years ago when he placed first with his dog down there. He scored 1,100. I was on that cast with him.
Okay. Well, man, we covered a lot of information there, and you kind of throwed me a curveball there with the English dogs. I wasn't expecting that one for sure. But is there anything we missed or anything else that you wanted to talk about before we get to the end here? Because we've been at it almost an hour.
Okay. Yeah. There is one thing I see a lot of. I don't know how it is in your area, but a lot of the local hunts around here are dwindling. I know coon hunting's kind of a dying sport, but I've done a lot of accolades and done a lot of winning throughout the country with dogs, and had a fair amount of success. But I'm going to say the most proudest I've ever been is we got a youth hunt down here. A local club holds, and my little girl has won it 2 out of the last 3 years with Jaeger. And I have been more proud of that dog and my daughter winning that than anything else. And that's something I love to see, is more people, getting the children in the sport and keeping it going, because, I've got a lot of enjoyment out of it, and my little girl does now. And it means more to me to see kids in the sport than anything else.
Well, that is the future of our sport for sure. And, if you get an opportunity to take a kid coon hunting, I always say load them up in the truck, give them a light, and turn them loose in the woods for sure, because that's the future of it. And I have 2 teenagers here in the house, and I just about burnt mine out hunting puppies. So they wasn't seeing a lot of game in the trees, because all I was hunting was young dogs, and you out there night after night after night, and it's just one of those things you have to go through when you're hunting puppies. And so I about burnt mine out, so I wouldn't recommend doing that, but I would definitely recommend putting young kids in the woods with a light and a good dog.
Yeah, that, and to all the other hunters listening, just support your local clubs, because without them, a lot of these dogs wouldn't have the titles they got on them today without the local clubs. Because I've actually have run 2 local clubs throughout my years, and I run one now. And this is, if you want it to keep going, competition coon hunting, you have to start at the local level and have to support your local clubs.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more there. If you're out there and you're listening and you're showing up to the same local club month after month or weekend after weekend to hunt that competition hunt, find out when they have their club meetings or their club hunts. And, usually the fees to join a club is fairly inexpensive. They don't really make anything off of it. It's $10 or $20 to join for the whole year. And a lot of times that's for your entire family. I always highly recommend joining the club. And also, I pushed this several times on here, but join your breed association. That goes a long way, and helping putting monies in different places, and helping grow a group of hunters. And our hunting is always under attack by the antis, and we all need to stick together, whether it's coon hunting, deer hunting, squirrel hunting, rabbit hunting. We need to stick together, and one way we can do that is support those bigger breed associations, so that when we do have an issue, that they have the monies that it takes to fight and protect our interest.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, because if you ain't careful, within another generation, there won't be no more hunting left if we ain't careful what's going on.
Yeah, that is for sure. Well, I told you about 30 minutes to an hour, and we are at 58 minutes. So we are right at an hour, and I don't want to hold you up on a Sunday afternoon. I do appreciate you and your wife taking the time to be on the podcast. But before I let you go, is there anything else you'd like to add, or anybody you'd like to thank, or?
No, just to all the local guys out there and all your local clubs, the guys that are running the clubs, whether just thank everybody for running your local clubs, keeping them going, and keeping the coonhound sport for the younger generation. That's who I really want to thank, because without them running the clubs, the guys behind the scenes, we wouldn't be where we are today with competition hunts. And other than that, that should be it. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Well, like I said, I really appreciate y'all taking y'all's time on a Sunday afternoon to sit down with me and record this and get some more information out there about some Redbones. And, they had a good breed hunt here in Louisiana for PKC here just a couple of weeks ago. And I talked to, I've had T-Mac on the podcast, and I talked to him through text messaging, and it sounds like they had a good showing and definitely had a good payout for that breed association down there. So, we try to spread it around, don't make it all about English dogs or Walker dogs, and we want to have some different breeds on here to talk about them and help promote each breed. There's something out there for everybody, so that's our goal here.
Yeah, and that's a hunt I'm planning on attending in the future, is that hunt they hold on in Crowswood. I keep up with it, and they seem like they're holding a real good hunt. And if anybody's, it's an open event after that Thursday night, anybody's in that area, that sounds like that's a real good hunt to go to.
Yeah, it did. It looked, the pictures I seen and the videos I seen, it definitely looked like a good hunt. And I would highly recommend, if you're in that area when they hold it, to try to be a part of it for sure. Adrian, we just clicked over 1 hour, and I want to keep my word to you that I'd only keep y'all about an hour, and I really do appreciate y'all being part of the podcast today and helping spread the word about some Redbones a little bit, and especially the Redbones in your area.
Thank you. You have a good day.
Yes, sir. You too.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys, for listening to the Coonhound Collective podcast today. We really appreciate you taking your time out of your day to listen to the podcast. If you don't mind, head over to Facebook and give us a like, and head over to Instagram and give us a follow. It's both at the Coonhound Collective. Also, if you would like to reach us here at the Coonhound Collective, you can reach us at thecoonhoundcollective@gmail.com. If there's someone that you would like to hear on the podcast, or a product that you would like to hear talked about, please send it to thecoonhoundcollective@gmail.com. Thanks again. Have a great day.